and their websites are static because somebody created it for them. They're not updating those things. So all these different hats that they have, or they have to wear, or they feel that they have to wear, right?
Yes.
It becomes overwhelming. And then that energy, that desperation, and I tell my clients, there's a stinky poo-poo. It's like having a baby and there's a diaper and it stinks. And that stink of desperation, your potential clients or people that are looking at you come across your social media or they flip onto your website, they can smell it, they can feel it.
Welcome to Out of the Box with Christine, the podcast for conscious entrepreneurs. Are you willing to step into your greatness? Are you ready to shine? Well, get ready, Truth Seeker. You're in for an amazing ride. And now, here's the host of the show, Christine Blosdale.
Welcome back to Out of the Box with Christine. I am your host, Christine Blosdale. I am an expert authority business coach. I help people of all stripes create content so that they can get the word out about their business through videos, TikToks, podcasts, you name it. Anything to do with media, I'm right there. And my guest, I am so excited about today's show. I've been really looking forward to having my guest on, because if I had a male doppelganger in the world of marketing and branding, it would be this gentleman, Jimmi Gibson, who is the vice president of brand communication at the Thrive Agency. It's a marketing firm. It's been around for quite some time. He's also a TEDx speaker, author, and keynote speaker as well. And so I was so excited once I stumbled across his LinkedIn page. I said, you have to come on the show. So welcome to Out of the Box, Jimmi.
Thank you, Christine. I've been looking forward to it. So excited to chat about some cool stuff that I know we probably have mind melded on before today. Yep.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, the moment you started speaking, and I'll say this as a broadcast professional, right, who's done 20 years in radio and then another 8 in podcasting, you have a voice and a demeanor that is very comforting, welcoming. It just brings you right in. You just focus right in on whatever it is you're going to say. You could read the alphabet and I'd be interested. So first off, kudos to your mom and dad for making you. But yeah, you have a wonderful way of communicating, and I just wanted to put that out there. I noticed that right away. And
awesome. Well, thank you.
One of the things, as solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, that's a lot of people who are watching this YouTube video or listening to the podcast. One of the things that they struggle with is really communicating what the heck they do for people. The service or the product is one thing, but when they're the product or they're the brand, I find working with my clients that's a difficult thing for them to get through. Can you just talk about, I know you've got so many clients there at the Thrive Agency, but can you talk about maybe a bit about your interactions with people and how you help them get that message out about what it is that they do?
Yeah. And Christine, thanks for bringing that up. I think, especially with small business, that's how the company started. Gosh, it's been 19 years. I've been with the company about 4.5. The founder really had a heart. He was multi-generational entrepreneur, had a heart for helping that small business person. And of course, we run into a lot of clients who are not well versed in digital marketing. They haven't dipped their toe in. And I think what happens is that a person is very passionate about what they do. They believe in it. They know that it can help somebody, but they sort of default to this voice of a business person, and they don't realize that what makes you unique and your individual skills and talents are what clients and prospects are actually interested in. And so, as consumers, we're sorting through all sorts of options. And the quicker that somebody can recognize that, you're their people, then they will magnetize themselves to you. And I think people are scared of that. And they're scared that somebody's going to be offended or think they're weird, or maybe something unique about them is not really doesn't jive with the business model of what they offer, whether it be a product or service. You mentioned my TEDx talk. That was actually the topic of my TEDx talk, that you have magic power, use it for good. And so whether it's in business or, social awareness or whatever the case may be, there's some little spark that each of us has. And, it could be that the person who greets people that come into your office, if they're the receptionist or the front end staff, maybe they're great at baking. They love baking cakes. They love cupcakes, cookies. They have the best cookie recipe that everybody dies over. And so let them bake those cookies and have those in the front office way. And that's a first impression of your business when they come in, and that person gets to light up and talk about those cookies or cupcakes or whatever the case may be. And I think in a virtual scenario, understanding, and this is the other point that I think folks are uncomfortable with. Nobody wants to talk about themselves, but we actually end up defaulting to talking about ourselves because we know about ourselves, right?
Right.
What you actually have to do is you have to put yourself in the seat and have some empathy for that prospect or that new client that you have. They want to talk about themselves. So the more that you can deflect you and get into their head, the more successful you're going to be. And, we can jump into the psychology of that. There's actually chemicals in the brain that you can activate that will help that connection. And once you get that connection, then there's a sequence that you can go through to help that relationship develop into a curiosity about your business, and then a conversion to getting that sale or taking the next step. And again, that can be how you navigate someone through basically a non-linear website. People can go wherever they want to on a website, right? So how do you direct that attention to take them through a path that you want to? And so we talk about that a little bit with the customer journey. I know I was listening to a couple of your other podcasts, and I'll compliment you as well. I can see why people enjoy this podcast. You're very conversational. Obviously, your background, we talked a little bit before we hit the record button, but you have a broadcast background and you're used to long form. So you're taking advantage of your sweet spot, right? So you're having these wonderful conversations with people. We have about 500 clients at Thrive Agency. I would say they vary from mom and pops all the way up to large enterprise, multi-location franchise companies, but the principles are the same, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a large organization or a small solopreneur. There are principles that when you hear them, you kind of knock yourself in the head and you go, of course, that just makes common sense. So yeah, I don't know where you want to go with that, but that's kind of my perspective.
You're leading me to some of the important stuff that, and I think we tapped into this a little bit about in the beginning, that a solopreneur, entrepreneur, many times we live in a isolated bungalow and we're very good at whatever it is that we do. We're passionate about it. We know it inside out. We can, in our sleep, we could do it. And hopefully we're passionate about it. Hopefully we love it. But what happens is that we have to wear all these different hats, right? So, my clients will come to me and they'll go, Christine, I'm really good at X. This is what I do, right? But now I've got to be a social media guru. I've got to be a website designer, extraordinaire. I need to write my blog. I need to do this. And what happens is that it's like when you go into a restaurant and you have a menu with too many items. A lot of times you just default to the, it's like going to a deli, and I see all these different things. In LA, in Los Angeles, there was Jerry's Deli, and the menu was insane. It was the size of a human. And I would just always default to the matzo ball soup. I'd be like, that's what I'm going to have because I know that, right? But what happens with entrepreneurs is that they become overwhelmed, and then they get stuck, like a deer in headlights. So they're not moving either way, and their websites are static because somebody created it for them. They're not updating those things. So all these different hats that they have, or they have to wear, or they feel that they have to wear, right?
Yes.
It becomes overwhelming. And then that energy, that desperation, and I tell my clients, there's a stinky poo-poo. It's like having a baby and there's a diaper and it stinks. And that stink of desperation, your potential clients or people that are looking at you come across your social media or they flip onto your website, they can smell it, they can feel it. And so this is really important. And I would say probably the gateway to getting to know about someone a bit more would be their website. And I know you're an expert in this realm. Can you help out our wonderful audience on some of the things that they should, even though they're not a website designer,
Right.
some of the things that they need to be paying attention to when it comes to their websites, at least?
Sure. So typically when you think about a website, and I spent a lot of time in e-commerce, it's basically a three-legged stool. You have traffic to your website, you have the value of whatever is going to happen on that website. So if you're a service business, there's a value of the service you're going to provide, or if it's a product, there's a value of the product. And we refer to that as average order value. So just think about the service that you sell the most of, or the product combo that you sell the most of. There's a price associated with that. And so it could be $50, it could be $50,000. And then the other one is the conversion rate. And the conversion rate is, if you're asking somebody to do something, how many people that come to your website do that thing? It could be click to call, it could be fill out a form, it could be schedule, an assessment, whatever the case may be. There is a conversion rate associated with that. And then depending on your sales process, you start to lose people along the way. And so let's say that it's a service-based business. Christine, you're a business consultant. You have 100 people come to your website every month, and 5 of them fill out a form that they want to meet with you, and you'll do a breakdown session with them, or you may have a custom name for that. And so your conversion rate is 5%. Now, then you have to take that through the process, and you have to go, okay, then what is my close ratio on the 5 people that I meet with? It'd be great if it's 100%, but typically it's in the 15 to 25% range. And then I would say on an e-commerce basis, for every 100 people that come to your website, you can hope that your conversion rate is somewhere in the 1.5 to 3% range. And so then you have to think about, well, if those numbers don't make it work for you, what are you going to do about it? Well, you have to get more traffic to that website. And so traffic that is not able to convert is a waste of money. So you want a targeted approach for bringing that traffic in, which typically involves, maybe in the beginning stages, a paid approach. We always recommend, an organic approach, which is changing now with AI. But I would say, you said something in the question that's very astute, is if your website hasn't been touched or updated in the last 2 to 2.5 years, it's ancient. It used to be 5 years, but it's getting more. And there's all sorts of helper software out there. We have platforms like Fiverr and Upwork and other places where you can have somebody that you don't have to hire as an employee. You don't have to pay taxes, all of those things to help you with some things that maybe you're not so great at. So we'll put that off to the side. But we've all been on the internet. We all are used to that. COVID exploded that. So a lot of digital agencies were birthed around COVID. They're falling off now, but you'll hear the term above the fold. That comes from newspaper printing days. If the newspaper is folded in half, obviously the things above the fold are where the top story is. So if you consider your website like the top story of a newspaper, and if it's an online newspaper, it holds true. They're going to put the most important, or the stories with the biggest pull at the top. And so I would say the biggest thing you want to do is just almost, if you have some friends that'll tell you the truth, sit around and look at your website and go, if I didn't know you, what would this be saying about your business? So it should be, we call that the hero section. It should say what you do, who you do it for, and why you're different. And there should be a call to action in that hero section, which could just mean learn more. It could be about me. It could be see our product list, whatever the case may be. And I'll give you a little tip on the language you should be using for buttons on your website. And then some sort of compelling image or video at the top. I read a statistic the other day that 82% of web traffic in 2025 is going to be video related. So if you're not into video, you better get into video, because people are lazy and they want to be entertained and they want to be able to consume video. So I would say the first thing you want to do is look at that hero section. And, there's all sorts of programs out there. Google has a free program. You can put 2 different versions up on your website, see which one converts better. That's called A/B testing. But yeah, I would say that's the first thing. And there's more that we can dig into.
Yeah, no, you hit on all the trifecta of this is why I say you're my doppelganger, Jimmy, because everything that you said is just this stuff that this is what I go through with my clients, and I'm teaching
Yeah.
them. Above the fold is something that they get tired of hearing from me.
Oh yeah.
Above the fold, above the fold. And, well, because I used after well, back in the day, remember in the .com boom, I
Oh
worked for
yeah.
America Online. Okay. And
Mm.
I was a writer. This is when they had writers. This is when they had community. Then they sold everything to whatever. But it's knowing the draw, knowing how to draw people in, of course. But after my work with AOL, then I went to Microsoft, to MSN. And then after that, and because after everything got consolidated, it was the big .com boom. And so I was a content consultant for these companies, and everybody was creating websites back then. It was like, and
Oh
they were
yeah.
throwing stupid money at it,
Oh yeah.
consultants and all this stuff. And so, but my job was to just look at the website as a normal human being and look at the navigation, look at the journey, right? And to give feedback on the journey. And so my whole thing that I kept driving home back then was it needs to be above the fold, needs to be your money shot. It needs
Oh
to
yeah.
be, if it's a photograph, if it's back then it was more, photo and copy text, then that needs to be, because nobody's going to scroll down and dig through your website unless they're excited about what they see right there when they pull it up on their desktop or now on our phones. I always, when I'm tweaking my website, because the majority of people are going to be looking at my website through their little device, their phone, right? So I want to make sure that the above the fold on the phone has everything that I need. The second point, the thing that you had also mentioned, and this is the thing that I drive home all the time, if you can, and everybody can, create that welcome video, that branding video, so that when people pull up the website, it starts playing right away. You can have it on mute because you don't want to upset people when they're 3 o'clock in the morning next to their partner, but have that video start playing and explain what it is that you do, how you help people. And the video, because look at TikTok, look at reels and even YouTube shorts. This is where people are. Their attention span is short, so don't go on for 10 minutes, but that video is the first way. When people can see your eyes and they can feel your energy, it's so different than just reading a bunch of copy, right? It's so different. And so
Oh yeah.
the above the fold, what you're talking about, that is so good. And I love the idea too that you're encouraging people to have that video. I think it's very important. You can also do that call to action because you can actually say it yourself, right?
Right.
You can
Yeah.
say, if
And you
you'd
can
like
point to the button. Right.
exactly, click that button right there. Exactly. So can you talk about, this is something that's also, I think, very important, and it gets overlooked, is the power of authenticity. Because we're so many people are afraid of not being perfect, right? I can't do that video, Christine, because I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that, or I'm too afraid I'm going to be judged. That authentic quality that we want to try and bring out in our message. Can you talk about how important that is right now?
Yeah. And so I appreciate you hitting on the video aspect. And when you start to think about video, again, people freeze up, but most people are walking around with a camera in their pocket that is way better than anything that you could have purchased 10, 15 years ago. There's multiple lenses. There's some very basic things that you can do to get great video. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know a lot. I just actually wrote a blog. So if you go to Thrive Agency and just look at our blog, I think it was probably in November. I'm happy to send that and we can include it in the show notes. But it talks about video and it talks about some things that you can do. And actually, social media has helped a lot with that, because what we're finding is when video looks like an ad or looks overproduced, people will skip right past it, especially in the social feeds. The more authentic it can be, and I know we've seen many, many things, and we probably follow people who mess up while they're talking. Somebody walks into the frame, they drop something. We're all like that. We're human. It shows that you're human. It shows that you can laugh at yourself, and it shows that you're not taking yourself too seriously and you really want to connect. And, it does take practice. The first video that you do is going to, you talked
Suck.
about the stinky, yeah, you're going to talk about the stinky diaper. It's going to be horrible. It's going to stink. And so you just have to get over it. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get doing it. But even if it's just okay, if you are yourself and you talk through, and you can mention things, hey, I just got back from the gym, I've got a little glisten here, but being healthy is important to me. Well, what does that say to the person on the other end who's watching that? Oh, wow, I like to work out too, or I need to get in shape, but I wonder what they did, wonder what kind of workout they do. And so all these questions start flying around. You might pick up a mug and you might say, having my tea. You might have assumed it was coffee. Why do they drink tea? You could talk about that. There might be a picture on a wall behind you. You might be out in your backyard and you develop this backyard specifically for being outdoors and having this wonderful space. What it is an opportunity to put road signs along the way. And those road signs are bringing your best ideal client to you. Whatever the product or service is, there's probably 100,000 other people selling the same product or service. What your audience is doing is they're trying to sort through who is the right person for me. And so the more clues or the more road signs you can put up related to that, the more you're going to attract people that you're going to love to work with. So,
Yes.
Christine, you and I are having a good connection. I imagine that we're going to continue to stay in touch. We're going to share things after this. And we just happen to meet on social media, right? And so there's plenty of podcast interviews that I do, people that I meet, and you're like, yeah, that was great, but we don't really jive. And we're just sorting through all of those things. You also mentioned something about a menu being too long. You couldn't decide what to pick. There is a function of the brain that when we're under stress, your brain has a cognitive load. It is limited in the number of things that it can categorize, that it can figure out before it needs to make a decision. And so we work with a lot of home service companies. And, we've been talking, you mentioned this on one of your other podcasts about the hero's journey. I love the hero's journey. I love all that conversation, but sometimes that's a little bit too much. If somebody has a toilet that is overflowing, they need the quickest path to figure out who is going to be the right person to come out there and fix that immediately.
Right.
And so you really have to get good about being brief with your communication, making sure you connect with that audience. And again, you're going to write and rewrite. You said you were a writer for AOL. I'm sure there's many revisions that happen. Don't let being perfect be the enemy of good enough, because you're going to revise it over and over and over. I always say that the website is the hub of all activity related to driving a lead to a conversion or selling your product. And you should be in that website, evaluating that website monthly, if not quarterly. And you should have your team, again, if it's a solo, pretend that you represent each department in your company and look at it from different hats and different angles. But you putting that effort in, especially when algorithms change and things related to social media changes, you're putting a lot of trust in other people's platforms, and you really need to spend a lot of time on your own website and making sure it's the best version of your business that it possibly can be.
Absolutely. And you don't want people to be confused when they
Right.
when they come there. That's why I love the power of the video, because also,
Yeah.
like you said, it's a nonlinear platform. So people can go to your website and they might go check out something that you don't, it's on your website, but that's not the important thing. That's not
Right.
my bread and butter, right? That's not the main sales or the main focus of my business. So the video gives you the opportunity to say, this is what I can do to help you. And I also I like, and you had mentioned this too on an interview, another interview that you had, and this I say so many times, the importance of not you as a business person. I don't want to hear you say how great you are. I want other people, I want to see what other people think about you, right? And so the power of testimonials and reviews, or whatever you want to call them, is very important, I believe. And of course, the person who's who can look at a review, and if it's just text, right? If it's just copy, Christine is the greatest thing since sliced bread, signed, Susie Q. A lot of people will go, well, that could be made up, right? The power of video testimonials, when you actually have a human being, and again, you can look in their eyes and they are so excited and jazzed because they said, Jimmy saved my life, my business. This guy is amazing. Hire him right away. That's way more powerful than just text, on a website. Can you talk about that? Because you do mention I've heard you talk about that, Jimmy.
Yes, we call that social proof. And so there's a couple of elements of social proof. Obviously, testimonials, people are going to believe what other people say about you more than what you say about yourself. And so again, we're recording this through a Zoom connection. I'm sure, especially through COVID, many of us cut our teeth in Zoom and all of those things. So it's not going to take much, even if your customer base is nowhere near you geographically. And if you feel weird about getting on a call and asking somebody to give a testimonial, get somebody else that you know. Again, if you're a solopreneur, get a friend, get some other person to say, hey, I'm collecting some testimonials for Christine. Would you be willing to say some things about her? That would be a way to go. If you are in the same location, take your phone, do a selfie video. There's all sorts of ways. And I agree. The video communicates emotion. It communicates enthusiasm, all of those things. The other thing is when you ask somebody to give a testimonial, a lot of times they'll just say, they were great, love them. Sometimes you have to write the testimonial for them, right? And you say, well, I'm actually going to put this on my website, and this would be really great if you could hit on these points, because I know, like, you're not giving them a script that's inauthentic, but you're saying, remember when we talked about this, and you're having to get them back in the state of when they were very excited, right? And so you might need to do a little bit of prompting and reminding. And again, the beauty of editing is you can talk to them for 15 minutes. And if you get a 30-second or a 10-second testimonial, you're gold. Yes.
Well, luckily my clients I'm training them in how to create a podcast and how to record video and all of that. So their video testimonials are beautiful.
Of course. Train them up.
I had one client, she sent me her testimonial and I was like, damn, this is like, I mean, her lighting was perfect. Her sound, her mic was amazing. And it was so beautiful. I just put some music behind it and it made me cry, that's how beautiful it was. So yes, but it doesn't matter. People, people can do it on their phone. You don't have to be, Francis Ford Coppola or anything like that. Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, I would also say if you belong to associations or if your business has won any awards, you want to make sure you put those up.
Absolutely. I'll throw out my bestseller status thing. And I'm not a writer. I mean, I wrote for AOL, but I'm not a writer per se when it comes to my books. I'm a talker. So I just repurpose my content. I'll take my speeches and webinars and things like that, and I'll transfer them and turn it into copy, and then create books. And so I'll have that. It's a challenge for me always to see how fast I can get a bestseller. And so I've done 4 now, and I'm working on my 5th. I'm almost there. And so that bestseller moniker, it's like if you go to school and become a doctor, I like to have that in there as well, so that people know that, at least that I'm on the subject matter of podcasting. All the books have been the bestsellers. They've all been about podcasting, so that when a client comes to me and they want to create a podcast, they can at least go, oh, well, she knows something about it because she's written 4 books on it, right? And there's like that follow through for them. So it is important to have, I think, those type of things. Some of my clients are so good at what they do that I'll just take them through a bestseller campaign, and I'll say, you're a great coach, you're all these things, but if you can get that #1 bestseller status, that just puts your expert authority gets kind of bumped up a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Jimmy,
do you have a book? Do you have a book yet?
I do. It's actually an allegory called Chasing Carrots Won't Help You Find Your Purpose If You Were Born to Love Bananas. It's actually about a monkey who chased so many carrots, he actually thought he was a rabbit. And so he was in a magic show and he was the star of the show being pulled out of the hat. And so it is a story about him going on this epic adventure to rediscover the fact that he's actually a monkey. And so it's basically an autobiography in the form of an allegory. So I wrote that. It took a while. It sat on the shelf for quite some time, but I've got that. And then I'm also sending out some proof copies of another book that I'm working on related to a 3-phase process of creating content that mirrors. So I've been a magician since I was 4 years old, and I have performed at the MGM in Las Vegas. I've produced theme park shows. I had a magic theater in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I was on the Food Network with the cake boss, Buddy Valestro, doing some magic for them. And as I started to think about how do you connect with your audience and bring wow to an audience, I thought this is the exact formula for marketing and creating a message that is able to connect with the audience, pique their curiosity, and bring them to a conversion. And so I call it the magic script. And so I've got a proof copy of that out that some folks are looking at and giving some tough love feedback to. So that one should be coming out soon.
I'm excited about that. I love that. That is so, and the power of 3, 2, 3, 2. Hello. The power of 3, right? ABC 1, 2, 3, and not overwhelming people. I love anything that has that 3-step type vibe to it, because it's also something that we can absorb and we can comprehend. If we got
it's
that
very
long
simple
menu, it's gonna go crazy. No.
Yeah, it's very simple. And it actually is scientifically based. As I started to research it, I didn't know this, but so you talked about speaking and things like that. I've worked with a Broadway director who was also a magician. He directed 13 Broadway shows. He was in the original cast of Annie, and I was lucky enough to be part of a group that trained with him. And so as I started to research these 3 phases of connection, curiosity, and conversion, I realized that you're activating chemicals in the brain. And so the connection point releases oxytocin, which is the trust chemical. And once you have that trust, then you move into piquing their curiosity. And so they like you and they're like, oh, okay. And when you pique their curiosity, that releases dopamine. I know we think a lot of dopamine about, you hear references to that with people being addicted to social media. Well, why is that? Because there is a ambition or curiosity of a reward that's coming, right? And so when we post something on social media, we expect the reward of likes and shares and all of those things. And so you're piquing that curiosity with dopamine, and then the conversion releases serotonin, which is that comfort, feel good, warm and fuzzy, like everything has come to a conclusion and all is right with the world. And so if you can take somebody through those 3 phases in an efficient way, I would say that's the magic formula for a message. And this can work for like the hero section of a website. It can work for an ad. It can work for a blog post. It can work for a keynote speech. This sequence will work for all your communications. And once you sort of look behind the scenes and recognize that, it can really help you craft something that's going to connect, create that curiosity, and then convert them.
I love that. Oh, okay. Get that book done. I want to read it as soon as possible. Oh, Jimmy, I thank you so much for coming on today. I could talk to you forever, and you're welcome back any time.
Oh, awesome. Would love
to the show. But thank you so much. So if people want to find out more, and of course they can go to it's thriveagency.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. That's the company that Jimmy is the vice president of in brand communication, thriveagency.com. But I'm also going to put, because Jimmy, I fell in love with you through your LinkedIn. Now I don't know what other social media stuff that you have. It just so happened that I found you through LinkedIn, and you have some videos on there. So I'll put in also your LinkedIn, if that's okay. I'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can find you there. But thank you again for coming on the show. I'm just so happy to meet you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you. It was a very easy interview talking about things that we both love. And yeah, I would say LinkedIn is the best place. Again, to those solopreneurs, pick a platform, go an inch wide and a mile deep. Don't try to do everything. So I've committed to putting out a video Monday through Friday every day this year. I think that ends up being 261 videos. And so hopefully by the 260th video, I'll sound intelligent and they'll be worth watching. So yeah, if you want to connect with me, and then if you have a question, just DM me. If you want a resource, I've got a resource that will help you go through the top 10 conversion things that you can look at your website in less than an hour. I'll send you that for free. I'll send you the one about the video. I mean, you can go on our website and connect, but you'll have to enter a bunch of information. If you just want it right away, just connect with me. Let me know what you're looking for, and I'll be happy to help however I can.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And it's such a great resource. You are a great resource. And again, I'm so happy that I stumbled across you. So thank you again. My guest today has been Jimmi Gibson. Again, he's the Vice President of Brand Communication at Thrive Agency. And you can check out all the great work that they do. It's a big deal. You can go check out their website. But again, we'll have the link in the show notes to that, and also to Jimmy's LinkedIn page as well. So thank you again, Jimmi. And thank you, wonderful listeners who are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, whatever platform you prefer. But also for those that are watching on YouTube, thank you so much. If you like this and you think that this show could help somebody maybe who's struggling with their marketing and their communication, their website, share this with them. They'll get a good kick out of it, and they'll get excited about, again, getting into that website and communicating their message with the world. So thank you so much. And if you want to have more information about all the stuff that I do, which is a lot, you can go to christineblasdale.com. That link will be in the show notes as well. And until next time, as I always say, remember to think outside that damn box. Bye for now.